Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier, with the third presentation looking at Mao's cautious start as leader of the People's Republic of China. Having looked at land reform and the economy in the cities, this one will take a look at Mao's early social policies. Social priorities included the restoration of municipal services, such as improving sanitation facilities, and the chronic problems that the cities suffered from: opium addiction, alcoholism, prostitution, gambling, and general crime. Opium addiction, with the organised crime and police corruption attached to the problem of drugs the world over, was tackled with a mixture of carrot and stick. These included the execution of major suppliers and the big dealers, but also an amnesty for petty traffickers, rehabilitation programs for addicts, and an educational campaign that included ban opium rallies. There was also a need to stamp down on general lawlessness. In their first year in power, 3,000 officials had been murdered whilst trying to collect grain taxes. Only chief culprits were to be dealt with severely, though. Others were to meet with leniency. There was a sharp edge to his early policies, though. He set out to stabilise social order, target bandits, spies, bullies and despots for elimination. As a nationalist crusade more than anything else, the infant PRC also tackled the foreigner. Foreigners were first required to register with the authorities. Their activities were supervised and limited. Foreign businesses were regulated, then nationalised. And following the tension generated by the Korean War, foreigners were ordered to leave. All foreign assets were frozen. Foreign-owned property was expropriated, Shell Oil being a notable example. And Chinese Christians were forced to sever their links with foreign churches. It was an emotional reaction to the century of humiliation, and not just to the Korean War. And it was very popular. With the urban economy stabilising, even flourishing, and with socio-political stability too, in 1951, the CCP moved to rid itself of those national bourgeoisie it couldn't trust, and tie down those it felt it could trust. 3 campaigns were initiated, each with its own particular targets. The thought reform movement, targeting intellectuals. The Sanfan movement, or 3 Anti-campaign, which targeted corruption and inefficiency, and the Wufan movement, or 5 Anti-campaign, which targeted malpractice. The first campaign, the thought reform movement, launched in the autumn of 1951, sought to put an end to individualism and push for a collectivist mentality of serving the people. It called for the study of the writings of Mao, spelling out the social and political responsibilities of intellectuals as loyal spokesmen for the masses, glorifying the revolutionary struggles. The campaign began with the universities and then moved into the schools, employing classic Maoist techniques: mass meetings, struggle sessions of criticism and self-criticism, public humiliations of the guilty. The result being that freedom of expression was closed down, as well as control over education tightened. The Three Anti-movement, launched early in 1952, targeted corruption, waste, and the bureaucratic spirit. It set out to improve state administration, but also to remove unreliable state officials and party cadres too. Another classic Mao technique was deployed: mass meetings to publicly criticize corrupt or oppressive officials. The Five Anti-movement, with tax evasion, fraud, bribery, theft of government property and stealing of state economic secrets as its targets, attacked the national bourgeoisie. More than 450,000 enterprises were investigated. Some individuals were imprisoned as a result, but most transgressors were hit financially, with heavy fines or back taxes to pay. The most significant outcome, though, was that the campaign forced most businesses to become joint state-private enterprises, one step from being nationalised. The movements can be seen as an attempt to attack corruption and ensure efficiency, things every state looks to achieve. However, they were also undoubtedly an attack on those amongst the bourgeois class who seemed reluctant to come to terms with the communist regime. No wonder there were those who claimed the revolution began in 1952 and not 1949. The campaigns did not set out to just identify and punish individuals who were found wanting, but to bring the classes as a whole into line. Confessions, denunciations, and labelling were the tactics employed. And just as in the assault on the landlord class, the people themselves led the way, as party members denounced each other, workers denounced their bosses, wives denounced their husbands, and children their parents. Confess yourself or run the risk of being denounced. Denounce others before you yourself are denounced, and apply labels on people. Counter-revolutionary, imperialist lackey, capitalist roader, bourgeois backslider. Public ridicule had long been an important means of imposing social control in imperial China. Now it was being applied by the new communist regime. The worst offenders were executed. Minor offenders were criticised and reformed, or else sent to labour camps. And for an individual to be so labelled meant that their family would be burdened with the same label. Dossiers detailing personal information were kept and used when people applied for jobs, housing or pensions. It's estimated that the campaigns together accounted for several 100,000 lives, mostly by suicide. Yet it was still a cautious approach. Much, much worse was to come. But it was brought to an abrupt and brutal end when the Korean War put almost unbearable strains on the new state. Despite the cautious approach, look at what Mao had achieved. The landowners as a class had ceased to exist. Feudalism had at long last been ended, and the path to a socialist economy in the cities had been laid out with the advent of the joint state-private enterprises. So, perhaps it hadn't been such a cautious period as might have first been thought. Indeed, as the historian Maurice Meisner points out, more fundamental changes had been made to Chinese society, rural and urban, in just 3 years than had been seen in 2,000 1,000 years. Now, if you think you might benefit from tutorials, and I am confident I can improve your grades, the tutorials will be focused on your needs, then why not get your parents to get in touch with me at historymadeeasier@gmail.com, and we'll see if we can sort something out. And don't worry if, like me, you're from the proletariat class. I am flexible on prices. I love to teach, and I want to help. They're my driving forces. And I plan my tutorials so that they don't add to your workload outside of the tutorials themselves. So think about it. But for now, let me thank you for listening and wish you the very best of luck in your studies. Cheers.